Okie hangover. Andrew, first of all, welcome. Mike is not available. He's doing the whole family thing on vacation, but it's a big day in Virginia Tech athletics. Virginia Tech has a new athletics director, Brian White, is going to be running the show. The new vice president and director of athletics. This was announced earlier this week. White was officially introduced to the fan base earlier today at the press conference. Tons of insight from Brian himself. President Sands was there. Lynn Doty, who led this search committee, was also present. And of course, James Franklin. Andrew, I know you and I were talking briefly before, saying that you were able to catch some of the press conference. I was able to watch it as well. First of all, a lot of people aren't going to know who Brian White is. This is a name that, unless you're an avid follower of Florida Atlantic Athletics, which I don't think a lot of our listeners are, he's been there for several years now. Apparently, he had just bought a house in Boca Raton. So it sounded like he was itching to leave. And it makes sense. He had a pretty decent job there. He had done a fair amount of work there. Obviously, he was the AD under Lane Kiffin, had some success there. The football program is obviously trailed off since Lane left. The Owls haven't really been all that good. He's gone through a few different coaches. But the main thing, Andrew, that I'm taking away from Brian White is that this guy is a business guy. Brian White was able to get help to get Florida Atlantic into the American Conference. They oversaw a bunch of fundraising success over there. That's really what Virginia Tech needs in this moment. It's not like Virginia Tech needs him to hire a football coach.
Yeah, no, he is inheriting one, and we hope that he's not going to have to even think about hiring another one for a long time. Either that means something went horribly wrong, or that it was a short tenured stop for Mr. Franklin here in Blacksburg. But yeah, nonetheless, I think that's what it comes down to, man. It's about effectively having experience in modernizing a department from, basically JV into what college athletics is turning into, which is a full-fledged business. Now, granted, he hasn't done it at the Power 4 level at this point, but he's a guy with a lot of experience. He's got youth, he's got energy, and going through a lot of camp. I would love to see what those conversations were like internally as Virginia Tech vetted a ton of different candidates, which I'm sure brought a ton of different pros and cons to the table, and ultimately landing on White. But as we look at where Tech is aiming to be, not just like this year on the football field, right? But as we always like to say, 10,000-foot view, right? Where does Tech want to be as a department 5 years from now? Where does Tech want to be as a department 10 years from now? Plans of a stadium village and what have you. Needing to be able to sustain the level of support that this program received to even just get James Franklin, because if we remember, Ricky, a lot of those projected donations, if you will, were just that, projected. Like, the success will come because we have James Franklin, and we'll be able to raise the money easier to then fulfill these commitments that we plan to make. So you need to have experience on a ton of different fronts. So at the end of the day, his lack of experience in successfully hiring football coaches certainly doesn't matter, at least for the time being.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a bit more of a background on Brian White. He has a relationship with Playfly, which is a company that Virginia Tech partnered with a few years ago on the multimedia stuff, marketing efforts, things of that nature. So I think that relationship obviously played a role here. Everyone knows FAU was in nearly winning a college basketball title not too long ago. And he comes from a family that's full of college athletics leaders. His father was at Duke as the athletic director. One of his brothers, Danny White, is the athletic director at Tennessee, and his other brother, as the head basketball coach at Georgia. And funny enough, one of the questions that he got right before the end of the press conference, Andrew, I don't know if you caught it, was um, Tennessee can be pretty difficult to get on the out of conference schedule. And he was asked if there's any shot that Bryant would be able to get his brother to commit to that, which he quickly dodged and and diverted it to his brother, who was actually in attendance. But real quick, I want to take a moment since we're talking about road trips, which will be a whole hell of a lot of fun if we could see a home and home with the Vols. Everyone knows that traveling for these football games can be stressful, especially when you're going to places you don't know, knowing which hotel to stay in, where to eat, where to hang out. And that stress can take away from the fun. But Hokie Hangover and ACC Road Trip are ready to help. We're proud to partner with ACC Road Trip. This is a new partnership for us. They are the definitive travel guide for ACC football fans. They're offering complete travel guides to all 18 schools, including Notre Dame, who isn't sure if they want to be a part of this conference, including handpicked hotels, restaurants, bars. They even offer exclusive deals and discounts at a lot of these venues to make sure that your road trip coming up doesn't really hurt your wallet. Not to mention, AC Road Trip is a Hokie initiative. It's the product of a Hokie alum, so you know that it's going to be a really well done effort. Make sure you check out the link to ACC Road Trip in the description. I'm really excited to bring them on, Andrew. A lot of people go to these towns that they've never been to before, and they have no idea where to go hang out. I know we experienced that a little bit when we went to Tallahassee last year, so we're certainly excited to have them.
Yeah, highly recommend. It's enthusiasm is going to be high. It's time to get on the road. College football season right around the corner. You don't want to be flying blind in these type of situations, right? You want that experience essentially to be catered for you, and ACC Road Trip could effectively do just that. So proud to have them as a brand new partner here on the Hokie Hangover.
Absolutely. Let's get back into this press conference. One of the things that really stood out to me was the term resource generation was used a ton. And it kind of goes into the overall arching reason why Brian White is here, and that is to increase that resource pool that Virginia Tech has to spend from. And Andrew, you hit the nail right on the head. The $229 million that were committed from the university to the athletic department as part of the Invest to Win initiative, a lot of that stuff was projected revenue and fundraising. The $75 million donation that Tech got a couple weeks ago is obviously a huge aspect of that. But it's not nearly enough, right, to get this across the finish line. And a lot of things were brought up in this, whether it be brand deals, sponsorships, naming rights, jersey patches, all of things that we are starting to see in college athletics. It seems like all that is going to be on the table in Blacksburg.
Yeah, man. I mean, cash is king in this day and age. And trust me, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I think that some things should be pure and sacred, but at the end of the day, right, like it's either get with the program or get left behind. And that's the position that Virginia Tech's in. So to have someone who I at least is, aware of that and has the business acumen to back it up, is paramount for Virginia Tech. And to be fair, if Whit was still here, this is stuff that Whit was talking about as well. But I think as we look to White, this is things surrounding that Rev Gen category are going to be like number A1 on his list, as he takes over from day one, right? And modernizing the department to be able to take, what Virginia Tech has as an institution and as an athletic department in terms of, to whatever degree we have history, but also just, rabid enthusiasm from fans and alumni, and just a wonderful university in general with great academic programs and a beautiful location, right? Like, I think some of the complaints in the past were like, that should be enough. That's not going to be enough now. It's a great place to start, right? But Tech is going to have to pick it up, which of course, becomes interesting, and as these deals come through, and given Virginia Tech's status as a public institution, like the details, like they do for most schools, do become public here. It'll be curious to see how he maximizes the creativity involved in getting to that point of maximization, whether more national brands can be involved, because I mean, always, think about the conversation we've had surrounding luxury suites and stuff like that over the course of the last 5 or so years. Given Virginia Tech's location in Southwest Virginia, which is just kind of a difficult place to get to and is not necessarily the business capital of the United States, right? Like, they are hamstrung in a way that even a school like Maryland or Tennessee or NC State, for example, right? Like, you're located right in Raleigh. That provides a ton of opportunity that Virginia Tech just simply doesn't have. So Tech's going to have to get very creative and really do a hell of a job of salesmanship of the value of, sponsorship and, corporate investment into these programs. And I'm sure that that's something that they talked about in the interview process. And I'm curious to see what that pitch that he made looks like in action as a pitch to these companies, and what the results end up looking like for Virginia Tech. Even though once the results actually come, I will not be happy if it's like, Carilion Clinic Stadium at Lane or whatever they're going to call it from now on.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that came up on X in my mentions immediately, was whether or not folks would be comfortable with renaming Lane Stadium. And one of the points I made was, I think that there's a tasteful middle ground where you can engage in these sponsorships and maybe look at some of these naming rights without actually harming the history and the tradition of the university. And I do think putting a corporate brand on Lane Stadium would piss a lot of people off, and I think I'd be one of them, to be honest. And actually, Chad Willis on X brought up a really good point. A lot of companies aren't going to want to be associated with that negativity anyway. So I think it's going to be up to Brian White and his team to find a way to, like you mentioned, Andrew, get creative. There are limited opportunities available in Southwest Virginia, but there are still opportunities. I think that it makes a ton of sense to get sponsorship rights on the field, logos on the field. That seems inevitable, and it makes a ton of sense. It's not really going to take away from anything for the game day experience, which, to Brian White's credit, was something he mentioned was a big priority for him. He mentioned that we're in the entertainment industry, and Virginia Tech does a lot of stuff well on game days, and we want to not take away from that stuff, but instead add to it. And things like that, or even a jersey patch, I don't think that that's out of the realm now. I mean, jersey patches are showing up everywhere at this point. I don't think Virginia Tech's ever going to look like a NASCAR fire suit, but I think you are going to see at least one logo on the uniform here in the foreseeable future. But all this stuff, I think, can be done tastefully. It doesn't have to be, capitalism run amok or just complete corporate greed. There's a way to do this that it fits Virginia Tech, it fits the brand, it fits the culture of the university and the fan base, and does so without harming all the things that we hold dear.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I never liked this across anything except for, of course, like, European football, where they've just been doing it for so long. They've been doing it for so long that, I half the reason at least when I was a kid, I was like, oh, great logo on that jersey. I guess I'll go ahead and buy it. But nonetheless, I mean, think back to Major League Baseball, right? Which is another sport filled with tradition and with a large contingent of traditionalists. I don't love it, but at the end of the day, like, the Mets having a Presbyterian Children's Hospital patch on their sleeve has not been the reason why I'm watching the Mets less recently. It's because they suck. It's like,
Oh, I'm sorry, Andrew.
you know,
I thought I had it bad as an Orioles fan.
yeah,
Um,
it's
but I'm
this
not
is
paying a player $400 million or whatever the hell Juan Soto is getting.
well, to be fair, Juan Soto is the only
That's
one
right.
that's not the problem.
Not really his fault.
He's like an MVP candidate on the Bad News Bears over here. But I will just make one more quick sidebar because I have the Mets game on to the side, and the Norwegian fans who have come in for the World Cup have taken a full section in their Viking helmets at Citi Field at a midday game that no one's attending. So I'm just going to point out that has been one thing that I've loved about the World Cup so far is just the craziness of all these foreigners coming into the country to enjoy the World Cup, and especially when they are tweeting about it on social media and all that stuff. So that's pretty awesome. But
somebody brought up a point that the U.S. team should enter the field to enter Sandman, which let me make one thing clear. If you want me to be a U.S. soccer fan, of which I really am not, only once every 4 years, that's how you do it. That's going to draw me in. I know that it's not going to happen, but it sure as hell would be a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, the U.S. is they're for sure the way that they've played in these first couple of games. Not that I was ever rooting against them, but also shout out to my country of birth, Japan. Also 2-0. So both those teams advance into the next round. But yeah, either way, off that sidebar, I mean, there's going to have to be a degree of tastefulness to it. But, you said at the beginning, there's a lot of people who will be dissatisfied, with these corporate sponsorships and all that stuff. Well, a lot of people were dissatisfied with losing as well. And if money is one of the keys to winning, Virginia Tech's going to have to do what it takes to acquire as much as possible. Though we will soon see, my friend Ricky, whether it be at Virginia Tech or other institutions, that just like in other sports, money can't necessarily buy you the wins. It can help, but it's not necessarily going to get you there 100%.
For sure. We did get the term sheet for Brian White at Virginia Tech. $1.6 million over the next 5 years, which puts him through essentially this time next year in 2031. I think that's a relatively substantial increase from what Whit Babcock was making. If I remember correctly, Whit was roughly around the $1 million range, which, of course, the price of business is going up across the board. But you're bringing in a guy that you're obviously hoping is going to deliver elevated results from Whit Babcock. And that's not to, ignore some of the stuff that Whit did do, which Virginia Tech has been very adamant about making sure that folks don't forget that. And I think that that's fair, right? I think Whit did have some real accomplishments that folks can hang their hat on. But and to Whit's credit, he helped kickstart a lot of this process. But with Brian White, it does feel like we are really starting to shift into more of a corporate structure at Virginia Tech. And with Hokie Ventures becoming more of a role player in this, obviously getting off the ground, Brian White is going to play a huge role in what Hokie Ventures is doing. This is truly going to be, I think, the first time in the school's history where the athletic department has been operated like a multi-million-dollar business. And that's exactly what it is. Brian White, Tim Sands both mentioned in the press conference today that Virginia Tech athletics is like the front porch for Virginia Tech. And it does so much for the university's brand nationally, and even internationally in some cases, that if you're trying to grow the university on the academic side, it really, really helps to have that positive brand recognition. And a lot of that is built up through athletics. And in order to maximize that return, you're going to have to run this in the most efficient way possible. And I think that that's finally where we're headed. And I certainly hope so, because James Franklin is not going to stick around if things are being run like the mom and pop shop that Virginia Tech has been for its entire existence.
I mean, you simply just can't run it like the mom and pop shop that Virginia Tech's been run like for its entire existence, right? It's frankly not sustainable, and the fact that, as you know, college football slowly changed over time throughout its history, right? But in a big way, probably from 2005 to 2020, a 15-year period. And, God bless Jim Weaver, rest his soul. The philosophy under Weaver, which carried over into at least the beginning of Babcock's tenure, was like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We're still winning football games, right? Like, why do we need to change? Not even kind of noticing the chess moves that your contemporaries in the sports or in the college sports world were making, that ultimately elevated certain programs on top of Virginia Tech and found Virginia Tech left behind, right? But what allowed Tech to do that was at first winning, which was then followed by, acceptable levels to some of mediocrity, of average to decent results, of feeling like we're close, right? You can't operate like that in this day and age. Like, you might as well go down to the group of 5 schools if you're going to continue to operate that way, right? It's just what it is. Like, you cannot succeed doing that, which unfortunately for some storied programs primarily in the ACC, if we're talking about Power 5 schools, who just don't have the resources and I guess, fan base willpower to do that, it's going to be a very tough spot for them. So these are changes that have to be made, which is why we can stand here saying we don't want them to riddle Virginia Tech athletics with corporate sponsorships, but we know that they have to, so this guy better be able to do it, right? Like, it's like you're rooting for something that you don't want, because ultimately what I want is a resurgence of Virginia Tech football and a downwind that carries Virginia Tech athletics as a whole. And that's, as a fan, as an alumni, that's all you can ask for. Your point exactly, Ricky. Whit pointed it out in his presentation to the board last summer about the effective marketing impact of successful college sports. I know, like, my buddy and yours, Brady Hess, wrote a paper in college about the impact of Michael Vick on just enrollment at Virginia Tech and selectivity and the size of the school and the overall endowment and all that stuff. It can all kind of be traced back to that initial renaissance of Virginia Tech football in the Frank Beamer era. Like, there's no reason not to do this. There's no downside for the university other than the, poo-pooers who say, oh, like, we're a college, why are we spending so much money on football? Because it's trickle-down economics. It helps, right? This is your brand. And it turns out, welcome to America. People like football. There wouldn't be thousands and thousands and thousands of kids from the greater New York metropolitan area, Orange County, California, and Chicago, Illinois, going to Alabama each year if football didn't raise your profile as a university, right? It just is what it is. Tech needs to get with the program. And for the better part of almost 12 months, the powers that be at the university have shown every indication that they're willing to get with the program. And today we introduced Brian White, who is going to be, the man tasked with the job of executing. Now, I don't think he's going to be, a solo operator. I don't think he's going to be operating alone. I think that the athletics subcommittee will still have a decent amount of oversight and, in certain situations, hands-on decision-making, more so than at any point in Virginia Tech's history. But yeah, that's get down to the nuts and bolts of it, right? That's what this guy was brought here to do.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has to remember that Virginia Tech is essentially working within a 3 to 4 year window right now, where if Virginia Tech is going to be able to hold its own in the next round of conference realignment, whatever that ends up being, which we know it is coming, this is the time where Virginia Tech has to maximize every single thing that it can within those next 3 to 4 years. And Brian White's job is going to be keeping those resources flowing, namely cash, for the next 3 to 4 years. And once there is some clarity about the future of the sport, which maybe we'll get some long-term clarity. I doubt it. I think we're probably going to get some more short-term clarity during the next round of realignment, and then we'll see what happens there. But in order to be ready for that phase, you have to be ready for this phase first. And Virginia Tech's playing catch-up. That's been something that the leadership of the university has made clear. James Franklin has made clear, and it just goes to show that there is a deep sense of urgency amongst the leadership. And this is the last point I wanted to make, Andrew. Tim Sands said today at the press conference that this process from start to finish took 26 days, which is very, very quick for an athletic director search. This isn't like a head coach search for football where everyone's hiring very quickly and you're having to work on a short timetable. Virginia Tech could have run this out. They could have run this out for 3 more weeks if they needed to. But even with the rector of the university being controversially dismissed, and the president on his way out, the athletic director on his way out, the football coach hasn't been here a year. We have a brand new side organization with Hokie Ventures. All this change, right? All the change on the BOV, all the change at the university leadership, Virginia Tech was still able to get this done in 26 days. To me, that is a very good sign that despite all of these people leaving, whether it be planned or unplanned, Virginia Tech has still got a lot of people in charge that are competent and are able to move effectively and efficiently. Lynn Doty deserves a ton of credit for running the search, right? She was able to get this done. She obviously had a lot of help. James Franklin deserves a lot of credit for not just managing off-season workouts in the summer, but also being a part of this search process. The fact that he played such a big role, not just interviewing the new athletic director Brian White, but also being on the committee itself. It still feels like that alignment exists, Andrew, and that's really, really important because all of the change could have really threatened the momentum that Virginia Tech had once it hired James Franklin. I don't feel that way. I think this momentum is continuing.
Yeah, and again, Franklin is what it comes down to, right? For me, is, and again, dating back to the presentation that Whit made in front of the Board of Visitors, which I think, again, hopefully this is successful and can go down as a kind of initial turning point for the athletics program, going back to that presentation. From there, the commitment has been clear that this is the direction that Tech wants to go, right? Franklin came on the promise of that commitment, and all of the powers that be that effectively made that commitment simply were tasked with finding someone to execute it. The longer you wait, the worse it's going to get, right? The longer you wait to start trying to enact change, the longer, in fact, it will take for change to be enacted. So if they found their man, I trust the decisions that these people have made to this point because they're the people that got us James Franklin. I'm sure Franklin had his hand in it to some degree, one way or the other. I don't think he was blindsided by this. And I mean, you talk about, when you talk about how his dad was the AD at Duke and his brother's the AD at Tennessee, and his brother's the coach of Georgia basketball, That does make it sound a little bit nepotism-y, but at the same time, right? Like that means that there's also a lot of people around the world of college athletics, which is a small one after all, that could, attest for this guy. So I'm excited to have him aboard. And I'm just interested to see how, the first probably 2 years of his tenure are going to play out here.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that his family's been pretty successful. It's not like they're failing upward. His dad was obviously at Duke a very long time. His brother at Georgia has been a pretty decent coach, and obviously Danny White at Tennessee has done a pretty good job helping the Vols kind of get out of the Stone Age in Knoxville and kind of embrace this new era of athletics. And Brian has seen all those successes and losses up close in person, had his own wins and losses at Florida Atlantic, and I think it's a pretty good hire. I didn't really have any insight into this process beforehand. It didn't seem like a lot of people did. I think Tech probably did a pretty good job keeping this one buttoned up. And when the news broke on Monday morning from several different reporters, it was announced shortly thereafter. So it seemed like this process was really well done quickly, done effectively. And I'm excited about where it's going to be. It's going to be a really important year. He's going to have to fill out his team around him. You're going to see some new folks coming in. I'm interested to see the backgrounds of the individuals that he hires. And hopefully all those folks will be just as qualified. And I certainly think that they will. Anything you want to add, Andrew, before we wrap this up?
That'll be it for me, Rick. Rate, review, subscribe.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe. I've been saying for weeks now, I was going to show it on the pod. I'm trying to give this damn thing away.
There it is.
So if you're not subscribed, you need to go subscribe now on YouTube. Once we hit 1,000, we're giving it away to one of our subscribers for free. You don't have to pay us a dime. You just have to hit the button on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed. And while you're there, turn the bell on so you know when we're posting videos, when we're going live. We go live normally. We weren't able to do it for this episode, but make sure you subscribe on YouTube. It's really, really important for the channel. If you're listening on another platform, whether it be Spotify, Apple, Amazon, make sure you leave a review. Let us know what you think. Follow us on X, Andrew at Andrew Alex Radio. I'm at Ricky the Blue. I think Mike is still Mike McDaniel SI. I don't think that he's removed that from his handle just yet, although I imagine that is coming. We'll be back here in a couple weeks to see whatever the hell is going to change. It's been a very busy offseason, Andrew. I anticipate that it's going to remain that way. Everyone is busy, which is good for us. It's good content. We'll be back here in a little bit. Make sure you check out ACC Road Trip in the description. Proud to partner with them. Home Field Apparel. Use BeamerBall to get 15% off your first order. You got the season coming up. Make get some fresh gear. And again, make sure you subscribe on YouTube to have a chance to win this sick-ass helmet next to me. Until next time, folks, as always, go Hokies.